You think you know who owns the sky? Birds, bats, maybe a fighter jet if you're feeling patriotic. You're wrong. For 50 million years, the undisputed, terrifying ruler of the air was an insect. We're talking about a dragonfly. A dragonfly with the wingspan of a hawk. A dragonfly that could have looked you dead in the eye. The question isn't if this nightmare existed. The fossils are undeniable. The real mystery is how the laws of physics ever allowed such a monster to take flight, and more importantly, why you don't have one splattered on your windshield today. Stick around, because things are about to get weird. Let's get one thing straight. When you picture a dragonfly, you're thinking of that delicate, iridescent little helicopter that flits around a pond. That's cute. Now, delete that image from your brain and replace it with a creature named Meganeura. The fossils, first unearthed in France in 1880, tell a story that biology class conveniently left out. We're not talking about a bug that's just a little bigger. We're talking about a wingspan of up to 75 centimeters. That's 2.5 feet. A modern bald eagle has a bigger wingspan, sure, but this thing was an arthropod. A bug. It had a thick, armored body the length of your forearm, and it sliced through the air 300 million years ago during the Carboniferous period. This is where your brain should start to hurt. An insect that size breaks the rules, but the implications are far worse than just a broken rulebook. This wasn't some gentle, plant-munching behemoth. It was a predator. A top-tier, hyper-carnivorous killing machine. Imagine you're taking a walk through its jungle. You wouldn't just hear it coming. You would feel it a deep, resonant thrum vibrating through the air. The sound of 4 oversized, cellophane-like wings displacing the thick, humid atmosphere. It's not an animal. It's a biological drone built for murder. A flying pair of bolt cutters with a one-track mind. The largest dragonfly today is a joke in comparison. Meganeura wasn't a bug you'd swat away. It was a bug that would swat you away. But that just raises the most important question. Insects today are small for a reason their breathing system is, well, pathetic. It's a network of tiny tubes that can't support a large body. So how did this thing get big enough to hunt birds? Before birds even existed? What was in the air back then? The secret to Meganeura's impossible size wasn't some magical growth hormone. It was the air itself. The Carboniferous period wasn't just a time of giant ferns and swamps. It was a time when the planet's lungs were working overtime. For millions of years, vast forests died, got buried, and failed to decompose, trapping their carbon and pumping pure, uncut oxygen into the atmosphere. The result? Air with an oxygen concentration of up to 35%, compared to the weak 21% we're breathing right now. For an insect, this changes everything. Bugs don't have efficient lungs like we do. They breathe through a primitive network of tubes called trachea that pipe oxygen directly to their tissues. It's a terrible system, and in our modern air, it's the primary reason a beetle can't grow to the size of a dog. It would literally suffocate. But in the souped-up atmosphere of the Carboniferous, that limitation vanished. The air was so rich, so dense with fuel, that oxygen passively flooded their bodies. It was an atmospheric cheat code. The evolutionary handbrake was gone. This wasn't just fresh air. It was a performance-enhancing drug on a planetary scale. Every insect was breathing rocket fuel. Think of it like this. The Earth put its entire bug population on a regimen of anabolic steroids for 60 million years. And the result was exactly what you'd expect. Unchecked, monstrous growth. Meganeura wasn't an accident. It was an inevitability in a world where the very atmosphere was designed to create giants. Millipedes grew to the length of a small car. Scorpions grew as large as dogs. It was a golden age for things that crawl and buzz. So, this supercharged air created a monster. But a bigger body, a supercharged metabolism. It all leads to one thing: a ravenous, insatiable appetite. What do you feed a flying predator the size of a hawk in a world full of other monsters? Don't you dare think for a second that this was some clumsy, overgrown fly. Meganeura was a precision instrument of death. It was the F-22 raptor of the Carboniferous, an apex predator whose design was perfected for one thing, and one thing only: aerial murder. Its two massive compound eyes were like a pair of high-resolution geodesic domes, granting it a nearly 360-degree field of vision. Nothing moved in its airspace without being seen. It could likely perceive colors we can't even comprehend, and process motion at a frame rate that would make our world look like it's standing still. And then there were the weapons. Its 6 legs weren't for landing gracefully. They were a basket of death, a cage of hypodermic needles that it would use to snatch prey other giant insects, lizard-like amphibians, the first clumsy reptiles, straight out of the air or off the ground. There was no struggle. The spines would pierce the victim, locking it in place. Then, while still in flight, the powerful, serrated mandibles would get to work, tearing, shearing, and grinding. It didn't kill its prey before eating. It just started. Imagine a fighter jet that is also a flying bear trap, one that begins to digest you the moment it makes contact. In its world, for 50 million years, there was no escape. It was the undisputed king. It was bigger, faster, and fueled by an atmosphere that turned it into a living engine. It saw everything, it caught everything, and it ate everything. It was a perfect predator in a perfect environment. Which, of course, leads to the final chilling question. If it was so perfect, so utterly dominant, where is it? Why aren't you having to scrape 3-foot-long dragonflies off your satellite dish? So, where did the tyrant of the skies go? It wasn't outcompeted. The first pterosaurs were still millions of years away, and birds weren't even a dream in evolution's subconscious. No, Meganeura's killer wasn't another creature. It was the planet itself. The very thing that gave it its power became its poison. As the Carboniferous period ended and the Permian began, the climate changed. The great coal swamps dried up and massive volcanic activity began to choke the skies. The atmospheric oxygen that had soared to 35% began to plummet. The giant superhack became a fatal flaw. That inefficient breathing system, once supercharged, was now starving. With every generation, the air grew thinner, and the giants found it harder to draw breath. The planet simply turned the difficulty setting from easy to impossible, and the age of the giant insects suffocated under the weight of its own success. Meganeura was a monster built for a world that no longer exists, a terrifying blueprint for a sky we were never meant to see. It's a chilling reminder that the rules of life on this planet are not fixed. They are written in pencil, and they can be erased. Deep in Earth's history, there are nightmares that even evolution couldn't save, waiting in the rock as proof that the world you know is only temporary. What prehistoric nightmare should we dig up next? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe and ring that bell, or risk dreaming of hawk-sized dragonflies. We wouldn't wish that on anyone. And if you want to see the concept art for that car-sized millipede we mentioned, check out our Patreon. You'll never look at a bug the same way again.